Attention crew, this is your Captain Caliban speaking. This is a supplemental episode of Enterprising Individuals where we bring you news and tidbits from the world of Trek, also interviews with special guests, and a few little surprises along the way. I hope you've been well this hot summer and you're keeping cool however you can. Before we get into our subject for today, I just wanted to let you know that we will once again be appearing at the Convergence Convention in the Twin Cities with another live show this year. Next week, to be precise, at 2 p.m. Central Time on Saturday the 13th, we will be going live on our Twitch channel with a panel of guests talking about Star Trek First Contact in front of a live audience at the show. You can join us on Twitch on Saturday at 2 p.m. Just go to twitch.tv/EISTPOD and subscribe to our channel. And when we do go live at 2 that Saturday, you can watch the whole thing there on Twitch. It'll also be available later on our regular feed. Again, Enterprising Individuals live on Saturday the 13th, August 13th at 2 p.m. on twitch.tv/EISTPod. Join us. It's going to be a great time. First Contact, you never forget your first. Well, let's get to our subject for today's show. And I wish it could be a happier subject, but unfortunately, it's a sad one. Nichelle Nichols passed away on July 30th, 2022, at the age of 89. Nichelle is obviously one of the pillars of the Star Trek franchise, having originated the role of Uhura on the original series, and going on to play her in the 6 TOS films. But her contribution to Star Trek, to entertainment, and to Black history doesn't stop there. And I thought that it would be fitting to talk about Nichelle Nichols' life and the character of Uhura on the show today as we remember her. To talk about the significance of Nichelle's life, we actually need to start before she was even born. Nichelle's family was from Robbins, Illinois. And Robbins was an important town in Black history. Robbins is a small town outside of Chicago proper. It was founded in 1917 by mostly Black farmers and factory workers, people who migrated from the South, former slaves or the descendants of slaves. One of the town's founders was a man named Samuel G. Nichols Sr. He was a white man who was married to a Black woman. And their son and Nichelle's father, Sam Jr., later became the mayor of the town. And he was one of the first Black mayors in one of the first Black incorporated towns in Illinois. Sam Jr. worked for Hydrox Chemical in Chicago, and he was something of an inventor, but his work was stifled by the racism that he experienced. He was only allowed to work part-time in the lab at Hydrox, and the contributions that he made to the invention of Hydrox's cold cream and other formulas at the company went mostly unrecognized. He was a stand-up guy. He was a church deacon for 50 years. He was a pillar of the community. But his life almost came to an end in 1932 when Sam and his family received a visit from the Capone family. Yes, that Capone family. Capone, Al Capone, had stills in the town. This is, of course, before the repeal of Prohibition. And a Robbins police officer had done what he's supposed to do. He had destroyed one of those stills. And Al Capone sent his brother Frank and an army of gangsters to find out what was going on in this town. Frank arrived at the Nichols house, the mayor's house, and Frank took Sam upstairs while his men watched his pregnant wife, Licia, and their 5 children. And he accused Sam of stealing profits from the gin mill in the town. This is all in Nichelle's biography, Beyond Uhura, by the way. And Sam told Frank flat out, I didn't take any money from the people involved in this. I've never even talked to those people. My father founded this town, and I would rather die than see it be corrupted. And this was enough for Frank Capone. He went back down the stairs and he told Licia, yeah, all right, don't worry. Your husband's safe for now. And Licia said, it's a good thing that he is. And she revealed that this whole time she had a gun hidden under a pillow held over her belly, a belly which contained little Grace Dell Nichols, a.k.a. Nichelle. I guess Nichelle didn't like her name Grace all that much, and her parents suggested the name Nichelle, which they said meant victorious maiden, from Nike, the goddess of victory, and Elle, the French feminine suffix. Nichelle's parents encouraged their children's creativity. Nichelle's sister became an actress, and her brother was also an artist, a visual artist. And Nichelle was, of course, a very talented actress and singer. She studied at the Chicago Ballet Academy and became a club singer and dancer, both with bands and on her own, traveling throughout the U.S., Canada, and Europe. She moved to Los Angeles in the late 1950s, and she appeared as a dancer appear in the 1959 film version of Porgy and Bess. That led to her being cast in the Broadway debut of the 1961 musical Kix and Company, and apparently that was not a successful musical. That was a flop. But she did catch the attention of Hugh Hefner, who booked her as an act at the Chicago Playboy Club. After that, her television career started to take off when she was cast in an episode of Gene Roddenberry's 1964 series, The Lieutenant, and she was asked to audition for a little project that they were working on called Star Trek. The role of Uhura wasn't even fully developed at that time when she was reading for the role. So I guess she read like Spock's lines, like a Spock scene. And the producers were apparently so impressed that they were like, how dry is the ink on Nimoy's contract? Oh, it's dry? Okay, all right. Well, let's get her another role. And I think that would have been really interesting. Nichols as a female Spock. Yeah, I'd like to see that. I don't mean to yada, yada, yada her time on the original series, but, we've covered it quite a bit on this show. I did, though, want to relate one anecdote that Nichols shared in her biography and in the interviews that she's done. It's a story about a time that she was at an NAACP banquet. It was 1967, and honestly, she was thinking about quitting Star Trek. Uhura wasn't exactly a major character at that point, and she was getting offers for singing work and Broadway roles. If you know the history of that time on the show, you know that some of those first season episodes, somebody else is in that chair on the back of the bridge. Uhura is nowhere to be found, and it's because Nichols was doing gigs. She was singing all over the country. She was singing at Carnegie Hall. She was in demand. So all of this is on her mind. And she's approached by somebody at the event who says, Miss Nichols, there is a Star Trek fan here who really wants to meet you. And she thinks, okay, the pressures of fame, the adoring public, at least there's that. I'll go meet this person. And this fan walks up to her, and it's Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And he says, oh, Mrs. Nichols, I am your biggest fan. I love Star Trek. It's the only show that Coretta and I let the kids stay up late and watch. Star Trek is on NBC 9 p.m. Central on Thursdays at this time. And Nichelle says, well, thank you. Thanks so much. I'm actually thinking of leaving the show for other work. And he says, you cannot leave that show. For the first time on television, we're being seen as we should be seen by people all the time, as intelligent, good-looking people, capable people, people who go to space, who are professionals and professors, scientists, explorers. If you leave, that door will be closed right now. Your role is not a black role, and it's not really a female role. They can fill that role with anybody, even an alien, if you leave. And she thought about that. She took that to heart. And she went back to Desilu and said, okay, I'm staying. And Dr. King was right. I'm going to go on record and say Martin Luther King Jr. was right. She was an influence and an example to many people. Think how many hundreds or thousands of Black Americans saw a character like Uhura and thought, I can be a scientist. I can be a professional. I can be an explorer. I'm an equal. Specifically, comedian and actress and talk show host and Trek fan Whoopi Goldberg has said exactly that. There's a story that Whoopi Goldberg has told about how when she was a little girl and she saw Star Trek, she saw Uhura on TV, and she got so excited she ran in the next room and she told her mom, Mama, there's a black lady on TV and she ain't no maid. Seeing a black person as part of this group, not in a particular role, specifically a background role or a service role, was influential to her. And of course, she went on to be an entertainer and work in charity, and she eventually joined the Star Trek family as Guinan. Also, Dr. Mae Jemison, who is an engineer, a medical doctor, a Peace Corps worker, and a former astronaut, she has said that she was inspired by Lieutenant Uhura. Jemison grew up in Woodlawn in Chicagoland, where Nichelle's family also lived for a time. And after getting a degree in chemical engineering and a degree in African American studies from Stanford, and then she got her med degree from Cornell, and then she became a Peace Corps worker in Africa, and then she became an astronaut because, hey, this bingo card is not going to fill itself. She would later appear in a cameo on The Next Generation because LeVar Burton reached out to her, and I'm sure that that was a thrill for her that hopefully came close to her going to space. TOS would also bring us one of the first interracial kisses on television between William Shatner and Nichelle, and we have talked about it previously on the show. A lot of ink has been spilled on the subject, but suffice it to say, it was groundbreaking, it was necessary, and it was long past time. After TOS, Nichelle would go on to voice Uhura for the animated series in the early 70s. She would play Uhura, of course, in the TOS films, where she finally got a chance to spread her character's wings a bit, and I think really show her comedy chops as an actor. She only had a few acting roles outside of Star Trek in the later years. Apparently, she was up for a major role on the Desilu series Mannix near the end of TOS's run. But Roddenberry refused to let her out of her contract at the end of TOS. She did appear in the 1974 Isaac Hayes film Truck Turner, and of course I should say that she played Uhura one more time in the fan film Star Trek First Frontier in 2020. She did a fair amount of voiceover work as well, appearing in cartoons like Futurama, Gargoyles, Batman, The Simpsons, and she was nominated for a Daytime Emmy for her role on The Young and the Restless in 2017. She also made 2 albums, Down to Earth, which was a collection of standards that came out in '67 when Star Trek was on, and then she released another album called Out of This World in 1991, which is more of a rock album, and it is themed around the idea of space exploration in Star Trek. She was not just a pretty face and a performer. After Trek, she worked as a spokeswoman and a recruiter for NASA on a program that focused on recruiting minority and female personnel for NASA. There's actually a short film that she produced and starred in as Uhura, and it was shot in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. And in the film, it's very short, it's like 3-4 minutes. She beams in her motion picture uniform and meets this little black girl, and she talks about, what she can achieve. I say talks. She actually sings about what she can achieve, but it's really cute, and you can find it on YouTube. Just search for Nichelle Nichols in National Air and Space Museum. Fun fact, the little girl's character's name in the film is Licia, the same as Nichelle's mother. The program that Nichelle worked on was responsible for recruiting astronauts like Sally Ride and Guion Bluford, the first African-American astronaut, and many others. And Nichelle would also go on to ride along on a few high-altitude missions with NASA, and she was a frequent guest at NASA and JPL. We could go on and on about her accomplishments, but really she was such an important figure. And as a woman who was, black, on this show in the 60s, doing something that few, if any, series, especially sci-fi series, were doing at the time, it's just amazing. And it isn't any shade on Majel Barrett as Nurse Chapel or Grace Lee Whitney as Janice Rand, but just being there, being one of the 7, like Dr. King said, was just so important. And she was such a cool character, both figuratively and the other meaning of that cool, figuratively, in that she was kind of unflappable. One of my favorite scenes with her is that one time where she's not really being flappable. She's trying to repair the communication circuits, and Mr. Spock is checking in on her, and she's got her head inside the circuit boards, like they do sometimes, and she's working on the thing, and she's like, I don't know if I can do this. And Spock is just like, yeah, you can. I would not pick anybody else on this ship. If anybody on this ship can do this, it's you. So go for it. You can do it. And it's subtle, but that just shows how much respect that a character that people love, like Spock, had for the character of Uhura, as played by Nichelle Nichols. And I think that remains true of Uhura at going forward. She becomes an even funnier character and a stronger, I think, character as we get into the films. And of course, she's appeared in extended media and, has commands her own ship and books and things like that. And you can totally believe it. Like, she's just somebody who is just one of the crew, one of the big 7, and is an equal to, I think, anybody else on that team. I wish that I had a personal story about Nichelle. I don't really. I have like half of a story in that I went to shore leave in 2019, and she made an appearance there. And so I did not get to talk to her or like have anything signed or shake her hand or anything like that. But I was kind of around her, and everybody at the con talked about how what an amazing woman she was and how nice she was to talk to, and how incredible it was that she had accomplished all that she had accomplished, and just kind of being, close to greatness like that was really incredible. So that's the life of Nichelle Nichols. Rest in peace, Nichelle, and thank you for all that you gave us and for your bravery. And we'll see you on the other side. If you want to know more about the life of Nichelle Nichols, I would highly recommend her autobiography, Beyond Uhura. I'd also recommend a recent documentary about her, Woman in Motion. That's a play on her production company, Women in Motion, but it also definitely describes her. The film is about Nichelle, but it's also about her role as a recruiter for NASA and the effect that she had on the next generation of astronauts. And Takei's in it, and Neil deGrasse Tyson is in it, and Vivica A. Fox, and what the hell, Pharrell too. You can find that on streaming services. That's it for today. Thanks for joining me. And you can join me again on Saturday the 13th for our live show at Convergence about Star Trek First Contact. Go to twitch.tv/EISTPOD right now and subscribe so you don't miss it. Take it easy, enjoy some classic Star Trek and Nichelle's work as Uhura. Keep it cool, and until next time, live long and prosper. BackTrekking is back for an all-new season. Hi, I'm Caliban.
And I'm Gooey Fame.
And we'd like to introduce you to BackTrekking, the podcast that explores the real-world inspirations behind your favorite episodes of Star Trek.
From historical events to classical literature to blockbuster films, we go where no pod has gone before to seek out the origins of classic Trek tales.
Did you know, Gooey, that the TNG episode Too Short a Season was an allegory for the Iran-Contra affair?
Yeah, only sweatier. Did you know that the Enterprise episode Regeneration was an homage to the John Carpenter film The Thing?
Archer and T'Pol freezing to death over a bottle of whiskey would have been a controversial ending.
As a dog lover, Archer would not like The Thing, I'm guessing.
Oh my god, movie night is canceled. Join us every other Thursday for a journey back to the beginnings of the Trek universe.
BackTrekking is available wherever you get your podcasts.
No, Porthos!